He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
I remember the day that we were in high school and all my friends said, "Hey, we're going to go play ball. Why don't you meet us at the park? We'll go play ball." And I climbed in the car and I showed up at the park and I had my cleats on and I had my baseball glove in my hand and I had my cap on and a pocket full of sunflower seeds. I was ready to play ball. And when I pulled up in the parking lot, I realized everybody was parked at the other end. And all of the guys were climbing out of their cars in shorts with sneakers on and not cleats, and they were carrying these big orange balls, and they wanted to go play ball, but they didn't mean baseball, they meant basketball. Now you may find yourself at a place in your leadership right now where you're looking at the world around you and you're asking, what just happened here? And I'm going to tell you, it's extremely important when you lead that you play fairly by the rules that everybody else is playing by, but the biggest challenge for leaders is that they don't know when the game changed. They don't know what game they're playing in. And so the rules that they thought would apply, they really don't apply. That's what I want to talk about today on Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And if you've ever played in a game where you felt like everybody around you was cheating, or you weren't sure that the goal that you had in mind, how do you score points? How do you actually win this game? If you've ever played in a game where you felt like every time you got close to scoring the goal changed, well, then you know what it's like to be in leadership, because it seems to happen on a regular basis. And I don't just mean leadership in your family or in your small organization, but corporately. Woke Inc. is a book that I've been reading through. This is a gentleman, Vivek Ramaswamy. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. That's what it looks like, Vivek Ramaswamy. He talks about having founded a multi-billion-dollar company, having become a billionaire after being an immigrant. And in his own company, the rules changed. In the company that he founded, the rules changed. It didn't just change the rules, it changed the whole game. Who are the referees? Who's in charge? Who decides how you score a point? What is out of bounds? What are the limitations? How long can you handle the ball? What is a foul ball versus a fair ball? All of those rules seemed to change while he was in charge of his own company. And I think every day we have leaders who kind of suffer the same consequences, meaning the game they're playing is changing. Now, you may have seen a lot of the hoopla over the last couple of weeks in the last couple of weeks, a lot of judicial decisions have been made by the Supreme Court. Some of them everybody loves. Actually, probably none of them everybody loves. Why? Well, because the reason it went to the Supreme Court is because there's still a dichotomy of belief between two camps. The reason it went to the Supreme Court is because somebody has to judge this idea. Supreme Court justices, they have to judge the ideas as to whether they're good or not. Is that ball a fair ball or a foul ball? Were you standing on the out of bounds lines? Did you step over the key? Did you hold the ball too long? Is that an end zone or not in the end zone? Was that a catch or not a catch? Again, if you simply follow sports in the NFL in the last 10 years, was it a catch, not a catch? Catch, not a catch. Catch, not a catch. Did he hit the quarterback too hard? These rules are changing as the game is being played, and we see even in our U.S. Constitution, We thought that rules were pretty much nailed down 250 years ago. We thought the guys that said, hey, this is the right way to do this. It's not about divine right of kings. It's about the individual's responsibility. You do you and let me do me, and then you leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. But as government has grown, government has changed the rules along the way. In fact, government has changed the game to something completely different. We've gone from baseball to pickleball. And without most of the public knowing it, leaders find themselves in the same kind of challenge within an organization. The rules change along the way. Maybe it's the way the rules of tax have played in. Or the farm tax versus the death tax. That can you just take away somebody's land and property because they're behind on their taxes? Even if the taxes are a minuscule portion of the value of the land, confiscation of the land. There was a law passed several years ago. I don't even remember who was president when it was. But basically it gives a local law enforcement agency the opportunity to keep the revenue that's confiscated during a criminal act. So if a local law enforcement agency needs a new patrol car and they catch a drug dealer with $5 million in his cash stash, they can just keep the $5 million, apply that to their budget, and have all the new patrol cars that they want. It's really kind of a scary law, in my opinion, because all they've got to do is accuse you of something. They get to change the rules, move the goalpost, take down the 3-point shot and make it a 52-point shot, or make it a 1-point shot, and there's nothing you can do about it. They get to kind of play by the rules that they make up along the way. If you've ever played in a pickup game of basketball, or as I talked about the other day, playing billiards in a new place, wherever you go, there's house rules. There's the rules that they play by. And you will find people who really are not very good at the game. They're really good at playing the rules. They're not really good at the sport or the activity or the challenge. What they're really good at is manipulating you within the rules of the game that you didn't know so well. I remember having a coaching client approach me several years ago, and he said, I want to enter this speech competition, and I just want to know that you can give me the tactics that I need to win. I said, well, are you talking about winning the speech or writing a good speech? And he said, aren't they the same? And I said, no, they're not. I mean, there's a whole lot of politicking. There's a whole lot of winning that has to be done off the field, so to speak, in order to win that competition. And if you don't realize that, then you're going to play by the rules that you presume to be fair rules, and not everybody else is playing by those same rules. That's a big deal. As a leader, you should be very well versed in the rules of the game that you're playing. You don't always get to make up the game, and you don't always get to change the rules. But when you understand what the rules are, you can play fairly within them. Now, I'll tell you the hardest challenge as a leader when it comes to the rules, and that is this: ensuring that the rules apply fairly and equally across the board. That everybody who's playing plays by the same set of rules. Can you imagine in the NBA if Kobe Bryant had a different set of rules than everybody else? Can you imagine in the game of basketball if the tallest guy on the court could not shoot within the half-court mark? He only could shoot from past half-court. Well, because he's the tallest, and it makes it too easy for him. That levels the playing field for the short people. If you're under 7 foot, you can shoot from the 3-point line. If you're under 6 foot, then you can shoot from the key. But if you're over 7 foot, you can only shoot from the half court. Can you imagine what that game would be like? Because everybody's playing by a different set of rules. Well, the same with baseball. If you're under a certain height or a certain weight, then you get to bat closer to the pitcher. You only have to run to one base and not all four. You see how silly that gets really fast when you put it in the rules of the game that we're familiar with. But how complicated is it when you go to a new place or you step into a new environment and suddenly there are rules that you're not aware of? And there are rules that can be changed on a whim because the executive decides that they're going to change. Sales goals seem to have that challenge. Well, last week the goal was this amount of sales, but this week it's this. For you, it's that, and for them, it's something else. That kind of unfairness in the rules of the game, well, that's the problem of the leadership. And leadership needs to be certain that the rules are clear, that the expectations are clear, and that the rules are fair. that they're fair for everybody, that everybody gets to play with the same level of enthusiasm and the same amount of effort will get them the same goals. That way, you know, if you're putting in your hard work, that the results will be fair. That's not guaranteed equality of outcome. It's guaranteed equality of opportunity. If you try as hard as I try, we should get the same results. If you have the same education and the same skill and the same talent and the same ability and you put in the same hard work, we should have the same results because the rules apply to both fairly. For leaders who don't understand the rules of the game, you're going to find there are people who will step into your organization like Vivek experienced. They're going to step into your organization and they're going to play by a set of rules that you're not familiar with because you didn't write those rules. But they're going to bring a game as an overlay onto your game, and they're going to start causing your game to be corrupted by their game until their rules overrule you. It happens all the time. What do you think a merger and acquisition is with a hostile takeover? A hostile takeover finds a way to identify the weaknesses in your organization and exploit them. Sometimes exploiting them means calling them out in front of the public where everybody else looks and goes, I can't believe they did that. And sometimes it means taking them legal action, whether it's through the IRS or it's through the legal courts to say you've offended so-and-so and you shouldn't have done so-and-so and there are human rights laws here and there are employment laws here and we're going to apply those in a way they've never been applied before, but we're going to do it now because we don't like what you said or we don't like what you did or we feel like we individually, although we've only been here for 3 days, have been treated unfairly. I watched a Facebook video the other day, very short video. It was a job interview, believe it or not. And in the job interview, the guy said, you know, I've won every single OSHA case that I've ever filed. And the employer said, well, what do you mean by that? And he went through a list in about 2 minutes, went through a list of all the companies where he would come on board and then either file a racial discrimination lawsuit or an OSHA lawsuit within the first 10 days of employment. And as he went through the list of companies that he had done that to, some major brands, he was talking about $40,000, $50,000, $85,000 checks paid out to him because he filed a lawsuit over things that nobody else realized were wrong, or nobody else was crazy enough or brave enough to stand up and say, hey, this is wrong, I'm being treated unfairly. Now, some of those, and he laughed about it, some of those instances he instigated himself. He would cause a problem in order to create the lawsuit opportunity, but he didn't really work. The employer asked him, would you be willing to work 9 to 5? You're okay with working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? And he said, I really don't work. I file lawsuits. Now, I don't know about you, but if I were hiring an employee like that, it would be a no, a firm no, a hard no, and absolutely not. I don't need somebody like that on my team. But when I talk about playing by the rules and understanding the rules of the game that you're playing, that's an individual you need to be looking out for because the rules of the game he plays by are his own rules because he's playing his own game. If you don't realize that as a leader, then you're going to find yourself a victim to the game he's playing. You didn't even know it was a game, but here you are losing. See, that's the kind of challenge when you don't know the rules of the game. There's a reason we have 3 branches of government, rules to the game. There's a reason that we have a Supreme Court, rules to the game. There's a reason that we have a military to draw our borders and say, this is our country, you stay over there and do your thing. Oh, this is our country, we'll defend it like it is, and yeah, sometimes it needs some change, but we don't need anybody else to rule over us. That's why we have borders, that's why we have a military, that's why we have law enforcement, because we understand the rules that we're playing by, and we want those rules to be fair across the board. We don't need somebody from another country telling us how to run our country. This weekend we will celebrate Independence Day, the celebration of 1776, the July 4th weekend. We'll celebrate the founding of our nation almost 250 years ago when people came together and said, we have a new idea. It's never been done like this before. This is an experiment, but we have good reason to believe that if everybody will follow these rules, we will have a great result. Unfortunately, we have some people who have come in and not played by the rules, or they played by a set of rules that they've kind of made up. They step outside of the branches of government. They step outside of the written rules. They step outside of the judiciary. They create mob rule and force violence where They want to get their way. Well, that's not the way the game is supposed to be played, but it is the way that they're playing the game. Kind of like the employee who doesn't really want to work. He just wants to mess up the system and get his payday in a different way. How silly would it be to actually show up for work, do the work, and get a paycheck based on the hours that you work? No, it's more profitable to cheat the system, lie to people, abuse people, and abuse a system that's there for protection of other people. Because I know how to play the game, I can get rich. See, that's not what this country was founded on, but it is, unfortunately, the game that we're playing right now. I challenge you as a leader to know the rules of the game that you're playing. Not just the rules that everybody is playing by on the surface because everybody knows, but know the rules. I'll close with this. I was in a pool tournament one time. It was the last level of the tournament before I went to the Nationals. It's been a few years back. But in the tournament, there was a guy that I was playing against. We were pretty evenly matched. And at one point, he realized, if I don't make this shot, and he leaves it open for me, then my ability to make that shot was pretty fair. And if I did, I win the game and I win the tournament. Halfway through my making the shot, after he missed his shot, he threw a temper tantrum. He screamed, he yelled, he accused me of cheating, he accused me of all kinds of stuff. And as he's standing there cussing and throwing a fit, he starts taking his stick apart. Well, I had just read through the tournament rules like 2 hours before the tournament started, and I remember a rule that says one of the distractions that a losing opponent will often use is to stand at the end of the table where you're shooting and take their stick apart. And because of that, there was a rule that said if you begin to dismantle your stick or pack up your stuff before the game is over, it is a sign of forfeiture. And so as I was leaning down to shoot on the final couple of shots, he stood at the end of the table in front of my shot and started taking his stick apart. I didn't shoot my shot. I stood up and raised my hand for a judge. The judge came over and I said, am I not mistaken that to disassemble your stick or start packing up your stuff before the game is actually over is a forfeiture of the game that's in play? And the judge said, you're absolutely right. Those are the rules. That's how it's played. This guy threatened to hit me with a stick. He called me all kinds of names, said that I was cheating, even worse. I mean, the list just went on and on and on and on because he was disappointed that he lost the game. Well, why did he lose the game? Well, he was going to lose the game anyway. I was going to make that shot. It wasn't that complicated. But he forced himself into a forfeiture because he didn't know the rules of the game. I promise you there's something going on in your life right now that you feel like you're losing. You're behind the eight ball. You cannot get ahead. And part of the reason is, as a leader, you've lost sight of the rules of the game. Take time to back up from where you are and get a better look at the rules of the game and ask yourself, are these rules being used against me or could I change them in my favor? You may not even have to change the rules, just learn to play by the ones that already exist to find an advantage for you. I also challenge you as a leader to make sure that the rules that you're playing by and the rules you're applying are fair across the board. They're not just to your advantage or anybody else on your team's advantage, but they are fair across the board, that everybody plays by the same set of rules. That's your responsibility as a leader. And if that's not happening, maybe it is time to change the rules. Governor Kristi Noem never had any sights on politics until her dad died. And the tax on his death, the death tax, the capital gains tax on his forfeiture of life took 10 years to pay off. She declared then that it wasn't fair for all the families who owned farmland and ranches who were trying to feed the country. It wasn't fair for them to have to pay that much money out of the cash flow of the farm, which isn't a whole lot of margin to begin with, just because they lost a loved one. If you're not familiar with the death tax, you should probably take some time looking at it, because whatever little bit of money you're saving up in your 401k, your kids may never see it if you're gone. Your life insurance policy may go to pay a tax that you've already paid taxes on, and now they're going to pay it again. Sometimes those death taxes can be as much as 50% of whatever you've saved, stashed away, put in a 401k or whatever else. Get to know the rules of the game. Make sure you're playing by the rules of the game to the best advantage of everybody, and that you're playing fair. But if you don't know the rules of the game, somebody could use them against you. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.